Welcome, everyone. My name is Laura O'Connor. I'm CFMA's Membership Director, and I want to thank you for joining us for the second session of CFMA's Member Benefit Series featuring Corpay. In the session today, we're going to learn more about the CFMA Corpay Affinity Program and electronic payments. Now I'd like to turn it over to Peter Smith from Corpay to begin the presentation. Peter?
Hey, Laura, thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you taking time to join on a Monday. I know you have lots of other things to do, but we're very excited to have a 30 to 45-minute presentation about Corpay and our CFMA partnership. We've got a few clients joining us today to highlight and how they're using our payment technology. I want to go over Corpay and who we are. It may be a new name to a lot of you on the call today and how we partner with CFMA. And then we'll go over an introduction of our payment solutions, from AP automation, virtual cards to corporate credit cards, expense management. And last and most importantly, we'll have around 5 or so pretty open-ended questions for our panelists to give you their candid feedback of how they evaluated the services, how they use the services today, and then lastly, allow you to ask some questions. So what I'd say is, as you have questions pop up during the webinar, please type them in the comments box. And once we get to the end of the presentation today, we'll go ahead and feed those to the panelists as well as myself and or Harold Haar. With that said, let's start things off. Harold, do you want to introduce who we have today?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're very lucky to have a few clients, as Peter said. We'll have some panel questions here coming up soon. We have Todd Rakowski from CG Smith and Elaine Thom from Middlesex Corporation that are joined us. So again, here in a few minutes, we'll get the opportunity to hear more from them and learn more about the solutions that they're using and the benefits that they're seeing there. Kathy Wasner as well will talk a little bit as well about the affinity partnership that we have and some new things that are coming out there. And then from Corpay is Peter. You met Peter initially there. He works in our construction division, and many of you have probably talked to him. My name is Harold Haar. I work in our relationship management group. So I lead part of that group, and we work with our existing client base. So thanks a lot for joining us. We look forward to sharing with you a little bit more.
Thanks, Harold. All right, to get things started, Corpay. Who is Corpay? So Corpay is a brand created by our parent company, FleetCor, out of Norcross, Georgia. So Corpay, again, the brand is meant to unify our corporate payment divisions from our sister companies, FX and Cambridge, who specialize in managing B2B payments internationally, to Comdata, who most of you on the call probably heard of today, as well as NVoicepay, who manage payments domestically. NVoicepay brings to the brand a best-in-class AP automation solution, allowing our clients to have one payment process and drive typically 70 to 80% of their spend off of a check and onto an ACH that costs their vendors nothing, and in some cases, a single-use card when and where applicable. Comdata, who I think most of us are familiar with on the call today, but to reiterate, our roots are really sit here from a MasterCard standpoint. Comdata is an issuer and a processor of MasterCard, which is very unique to the market today. Most everyone knows from their personal lives, banks are issuers of either Visa and or MasterCard, and some are dual. What's not as widely known is every bank in the country, no matter how big or small, third parties that issuing out to a company by the name of TSYS in Columbus, Georgia. So a lot of the details that we'll get into later, and I think why so many contractors have found our suite of solutions compelling, is because we are essentially the wholesaler, the issuer, the processor, as well as the technology of our platform. So some key highlights to call out here: over 850,000 known paid vendors within our network. We are MasterCard's largest commercial issuer in North America, which is a pretty cool thing to say, given that, in your personal lives, you don't hear about Comdata, Corpay, or NVoicepay most. And, the funny joke I make there might not be that funny is, we don't have Samuel L. Jackson on the TV at night asking you what's in your wallet, right? All we do is B2B payments. 15,000 global clients, and something to hang our hat on here, around 98% customer satisfaction rating. So hopefully that's a great overview into who Corpay is and who we are moving forward. But feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to lob them in our comments. So to further elaborate on something that I know Harold and I are pretty proud of, I've been with the company for about 10 years, and all my time has been spent in our construction division. We started our construction division in 2008. A gentleman by the name of Eric Newton, who's a past CFO, CPA, he actually sparked this relationship with the CFMA that we still have today, saw a need in the market, and brought our product suites to really cater towards some of the tough putts of the construction industry, right? Construction's old school by design, so it's riddled with, manual processes for control and paper checks, and something that's very unique to your industry, job cost accounting. So pretty neat that we were able to identify some of these key pains in the industry and cater our solutions and build an expense management tool with an existing client to help our contractors better manage job costs from the field to the back office, but also two, helping our clients focus on driving as many of the manual processes in AP today out as we can, and alleviating checks and driving payments onto either an ACH or a card when where applicable. Neat call out here on the right side, and a big part of why we've been so successful in partnering with so many contractors, from top E&R firms in the nation to your smaller mom and pop contractors, is the integrations we have with the vast majority of construction specific ERPs out there. So from your Viewpoints and your Sages, your CMIC, Coins, AccuBuilds of the world, all of our integrations are unique in some way, shape, or form, but at the base of what they aim to accomplish is a means to sync your data from your ERP from a job costing perspective to allow employees in the field to code the valid and active information when and where we can, capture image of receipts, but also to capture essentially an AP payment file, right? So rather than having to manage your payee database and send a check file to the printer, ACH file to the bank, and a card file to a bank or other fintech provider, we allow you to do all of that in one. And in most cases, it's a pre-configured integration to allow you to not have to task any more of your IT resources on a new project for the year. So again, any questions, any thoughts, any comments, feel free to put them in the comment section and we'll address them at the end of the call. But with that, I'm going to kick it over to Kathy and let her talk a little bit about our CFMA partnership in the past and the present and where we see it going in the future. Kathy?
Thank you so much, Peter. For those of you who have been CFMA members for a while, our relationship with Comdata goes back at least 10 years. So they've been a great partner, and we look forward to continuing that with Corpay. They've been a great affinity partner. The thing that's unique, and we often, if you've ever heard me present something at a regional conference, at a chapter event, a chapter summit, we always talk about the unique thing about this relationship is that our chapters also get a rebate. So not only is your company working with a product that's a good product for you, your CFMA chapter also gets a rebate, which is a really unique thing in our other partnerships. You've all seen folks from Comdata in the past at our conference. They're very involved in sponsoring a whole bunch of other areas. So we have a very deep and long partnership with each other. So actually, want to go to the next slide, Peter. I'm going to talk a little bit about, especially kind of the sharing, as I mentioned, with your local chapter. So in the past, we've always your chapter gets 1 basis point goes to your local chapter for every dollar a member's company spends. So that's going to continue with our new relationship. The only thing that's different is there is a cap. So it'll be $30,000 quarterly that goes to our chapters, split up that way. That will be the cap. As a point of reference, we're typically a little closer to 40,000. So we will just prorate that by which percentage you get on all of the existing business. So that's for all the existing business. The thing that's new in our continued partnership, which could be great for some of your chapters and some of your companies as well, is going forward, if you get any new business and any new customers that are new to Corpay, you will get 2 basis points per dollar. So for your chapters, while in the existing business, you may get a bit less, there's the opportunity to get a significant amount more on new business. So that's a great thing that I wanted to be sure we included in this webinar to make sure that everyone knows how to make that happen. So we're going to quickly, Peter, I'll share my screen real quick. So the one interesting thing that's different now is everything must go through a portal on our website to be tagged as a CFMA for in the, in the Corpay world to be tagged as CFMA. Can everyone see my screen properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly how to get there. So you're going to go to the CFMA main page. You're going to log in. Log in very quickly. And then you'll get the secondary menu of member benefits. In here, in member benefits discounts, you'll click here. Corpay is the first partner in here. And then, all the good information about Corpay is in here. This paragraph's down here with the click here for more information is where you'll go if you want to, submit your name and share your information with Corpay. So if you're thinking about working with Corpay, and you want to be sure that your information is tagged to the CFMA program, you have to go through this portal. So make sure that you go to our website first, again, member benefits, then discounts, and then the click here, submit all your information, and then someone from Corpay will be in touch. But that way, your company will definitely be tagged as part of the CFMA program. And any questions that come up on that, for those of you who are involved in your chapters, we do send quarterly in that ACH. We do tell you that, what chapter, what companies rather are involved in that spend and all that. So if there's any questions on that, let me know.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Kathy. And we take a lot of pride in this partnership and our ability to help contribute back to the construction industry. I know locally here in Middle Tennessee, in our chapter, every year, pretty much what we're working towards wholly is the ability to raise funds for scholarships for kids at our local universities that are focusing on accounting and trying to get them thinking about, post-college and going into the construction space with scholarship. I think this year, Middle Tennessee chapter is able to do a little shout out here, Kathy, but it's around 5 scholarships of $2,000 a piece. So we take a lot of pride in that. Part of that is from, what Comdata, Corpay, NVoicepay is able to contribute back, but also a big part of that is our golf tournament fund. So really neat to kind of see all that come full circle. So continuing, let's see here, just to make sure, Kathy, can you see my screen?
We can, yes.
Perfect. So if there's one slide to take back for internal conversations post the presentation today, this would be a good one to speak to. So starting on the far left, the most simple solution that most every contractor we work with today leverages from our payment technology is our physical card for a point of sale purchase. It's very common, depending upon obviously the type of construction a firm does, but it's very common to find a purchasing card in the organization, in some employees' hands, a fuel card, a T&E card of sorts, and maybe even Home Depot and Lowe's, right? On average, probably 3 to 6 different physical card platforms out there. So what we really like to bring to the market is what we call a one card solution, right? Our card at its base nature is a fuel card, prompting for odometer, pins, validating from vehicle pools, providing that IFTA specific fuel tax reporting. But conversely, it's MasterCard branded, as you see that bug on there. So it's quote unquote universally accepted, right? Anywhere a MasterCard would be. How we control our cards is very unique, and it goes back to what I talked about at the beginning of the presentation as being an issuer and a processor, as well as the technology of our transaction, affording our clients greater real-time controls and reporting and visibility into the who, what, when, where, why of a transaction. So in short, taking 3 to 6 card platforms to one, and then pairing that with an expense management tool that we created with the company out of Knoxville, Tennessee in around 2010 to help contractors capture an image of the receipt that automatically attaches itself to the transactional data, and then applies subsequent job cost accounting from information they brought over from their ERP the night before, allowing everything from the field to get to the back office and then the GL electronically and in a very timely manner. On the far right here, you see AP automation solutions. So ranging from a simple solution that was a big focus of ours back in 2010, 11, 12, which is that of a single-use virtual MasterCard to help alleviate paper checks in a subsegment of your trade AP spend, right? The big call out with virtual cards is it's not meant, built, or designed for your subs, right? Subs are contracted negotiated rates. Virtual cards are best for vendors that have interchange, which is the cost of accepting electronic forms of payment built into your goods and services. So rental equipment, materials, utilities, supplies, things of that nature. that is a very neat solution that a lot of our clients use today, whether it's standalone, right, and sending a file to us to just pay a subsegment of vendors, or whether it's built into the NVoicepay AP automation solution. So NVoicepay will be a big focus of our call today, and that is a solution that allows our clients to send one single payment file, no matter the payment modality, and have those vendors to be paid. We will off-site print and mail your checks on your behalf. We will remit ACHs as well as virtual cards. Where it's vastly different from almost every other provider in the industry today is in the services. So in the service part of that solution, we're actually collecting and storing and validating and maintaining that ACH data on your behalf. So your AP team never has to see it, touch it, feel it. And because we do that, we're able to indemnify your company of all payment liability. The easiest way to put it is FOB destination versus FOB shipping point. We guarantee your intended payment reaches your vendor, not the intended location that's on file for them, alleviating all risk of fraud. So without rambling on, I'd love for you to hear more directly from our clients on that, and that's hopefully what we'll pull out in the questions later today. Feel free to put anything that's popped into your head so far in the comment section, and we'll review them and try to get to them before the end of the slide. So Harold, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go to this next slide, and if you could just give a high-level overview of the companies we have with us today.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah. So again, we have Todd Rakowski from CG Smith, and I want to learn just a little bit about the company, kind of where they are. They're based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, about a little bit over 350 employees. Revenue ranges, somewhere between that 300 to 500 million, and 100 years in business. So congratulations, Todd. There, that's quite an achievement. You've been around for a long time, and a little fun fact too. In 2015, Todd, you had completed the longest continuous concrete pour in Wisconsin history. So 27 hours. Does that still stand?
As far as we know, we're hoping someday to celebrate 100 years too.
Great. Well, and thank you so much for joining us today. Couple things on CG Smith. Pete, if you'll go to the next slide too, we'll talk a little bit about the solutions that you have and kind of where you were when you started to work with us. So, historic payment mix outside of Textura was 100% check, right? That's where you guys were. With the NVoicepay solution, 50% of payment volume converted to ACH, 17% converted to virtual card. So that's pretty exciting. There, I would think, from your standpoint, Todd, there of kind of success of moving a lot of those payments from that manual paper process into an electronic process. And we thank you for being a client since 2019 as well. So we appreciate that. Todd, anything else I missed there? Anything you'd like to add?
Nope.
All right, fantastic. Let's introduce Middlesex as well. So Middlesex is based out of Littleton, Massachusetts, has a local headquarters as well in Orlando, Florida, about 1,000 employees, ranked 222 on the ENR ranking of the top 400. Fun fact for them, they initiated the learning development program, formed an energy division, and constructed the largest asphalt plant in Southeast United States in Orlando. Been building America's infrastructure since 1972. And what they've worked with Comdata to kind of highlight that a little bit, they have 400 cardholders approximately. They're utilizing expense track. They do have those cards out in the field. They're using those and they're coding those transactions. On the virtual card side, 28% of their vendors, they're paying through the virtual card platform. Approximately $2 million a month is going through that platform. And they've been a client since 2014. So Elaine, anything else I've missed there?
No, I think you got it all good.
All
Thanks.
right. Perfect.
Well, thanks, Harold. So now to the kind of panel question and answer section for Todd and Elaine. So the first question we're going to start with, Todd's going to be for you. What prompted you to explore AP automation?
I mean, the biggest thing for us is we utilize, like Howard said before, Textura for a lot of our larger subcontractor payments, but we are kind of looking for this one-stop solution for all of our other vendors or material suppliers and that's really where we got with NVoicepay, really to streamline, structure the process, very simplistic. Like I said, you upload one file, you approve it, and you're done.
That's great. And just kind of off the cuff, Todd, I know I didn't prep you for this, but how many people do you have in your accounting department? Is it one location or multiple?
We have 2 locations, one in the Milwaukee area and one in the Madison area, but all of our job sites throughout mainly Wisconsin, but Illinois, Iowa, they become almost your extension of your office.
Yes, sir. Very cool. And how many folks in AP ballpark?
What do we have? 5 or 6, but they're APAR, they're project accountants. So they actually do
Yes, sir.
both the payable side and the billing side.
Okay, great. That's awesome frame of reference. I'm sure for everybody else on the call today. So Elaine, to you, you can read this, but what prompted you to explore a third payment option for your vendors and a better way to manage job costs from the field to the back office?
I'll go with the main thing, rebates. It turned accounts payable into a money giver, into a money receiver. We had numerous cards out there. We had one company for fuel, one company just as a bank card. We had, your local vendors, Home Depot, Lowe's, the small mom and pop places. We wanted to get rid of all that and put it all into one. So it's working. And also it's a quicker payment option with the virtuals. So we can get the payments out to our vendors, and we do have subcontractors that do also take the virtual payments.
Okay, neat. And outside of virtual card from a back office standpoint, are you is it mostly check, or do you have some ACHs mixed in there as well?
No ACHs right now. Those are very limited. We do, our team members all get paid electronically, like for their reimbursable expenses. Other than that, we rely on the checks, the card, and the virtual MasterCard payments.
Very cool. And I guess lastly, again, I didn't prep you for this, so sorry for the curveball, but outside of, you elaborate on multiple card platforms to one, outside of the physical cards, how did you manage, it doesn't have to be a paragraph on it, but how did you manage the collection of receipts and subsequent, coding from all those card providers prior to using our tool?
It was terrible. Everybody, as you know, in the construction field, paperwork is the last thing. And at the end of the month, you would just get envelope after envelope after envelope of receipts, and trying to sort through them, try to divide them out to each person responsible for that card. It was a nightmare.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure we can elaborate a little bit further on that here in a minute. So thanks for adding that. Harold, you want to ask the question number 2? Oh, let's see.
Yeah,
I went too far. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, Todd, thanks so much for sharing, previously about the one payment file and some of the benefits there. But can you maybe expand a little bit on the benefits that you've seen in partnering for the NVoicepay solution when you implemented that? Have you seen any benefit with your AP staff? Any kind of efficiency gains, some of those type of things?
Yeah, I mean, clearly you're not printing, stuffing checks and doing all that stuff. Similar, you're able to get the rebates. I mean, one of the key things, we had an initiative probably 2-3 years ago to get all personal information off our systems. So we were dabbling, looking into if we wanted to pay some subs via ACH. Really, one of the key things with, like I mentioned before, is with NVoicepay, is really we don't collect any of the information of the accounts and routing numbers for all the vendors and that. That's really all done on the NVoicepay side. So we just upload the one file and we have none of that information, and especially with the guarantee that as soon as that information is transmitted, it's now basically on the responsibility of NVoicepay.
That's a great point, Todd. Yeah, I think being able to finding a way to keep all of that data, all of that information about their banking information safe, right? That's a pretty big risk that you would incur yourself as well. So appreciate that. Absolutely. Elaine, what stood out most about Corpay as your virtual and physical card provider and expense management provider. Obviously, you shared about the the process you had initially and the cumbersome experience that you had with that and how much effort that took, as well as the multiple cards that you were using. Is there anything else that kind of stood out, or the value that you saw and the benefit that you saw from the Corpay programs?
I think with number one, going back to the last question, is the receipts. We're getting the receipts in. And instead of a small department being responsible for the coding and the processing of these receipts, the cardholders became responsible. And it's different when they have to do it as compared to the accounts payable department. It's a lot quicker. We have a time schedule set up. So instead of uploading expenses monthly, we're able to do it weekly. And as far as virtual cards, I like it because when you hit that button, it goes. You don't have to stuff the envelope. You don't waste the stamp. You don't have the issues of, I get, some checks sent back to me that were destroyed in the post office. You don't have that. So it seems that it works out very well.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Elaine. When it's interesting, you talk about putting the responsibility back on the cardholder for those receipts. I feel like sometimes that's something we hear from our construction clients and the prospects that we're talking to is the team is handling that, right? The team is handling the coding of those transactions and taking a lot of that on. Was that a hard thing to get that rolled out to your cardholders and kind of putting that responsibility on them, or did that go fairly smoothly?
Well, let's say they were, as with anything, when they didn't have to do it, it became another task for them. But with the expense track app, it's very easy. It's just a drop down box. You pick, you take your picture, and you're done. So it's a fast and easy way to get it done. They can save their receipts if they didn't trust it for like a week. And then it was like, okay, then all of a sudden it's like they're taking the picture, throwing away the receipt, and just moving along. And it does allow it to go a lot quicker.
That's great. That's great. Well, and one other piece, I think, to add to that of what you said is I think you said you're able to get those transactions turned around in 2 weeks now, compared to probably a month plus.
I'd say no. We do weekly.
Weekly.
We're doing them. Yeah, we're doing
Nice.
them weekly, and it's good. It gives your reports, the job cost reports, are more up to date. This way, the management team can look at it, and if they see something that's might just stick out to them, like, well, why did that get coded there? It's not a month down the road. It's like you can change it before the period closes. You can update your codes.
That's great. Great. Thank you.
Cool. All right. To the third question. Let's see, it's lagging a little bit. Sorry about that. There we go. Todd, what feedback from your vendors have you received from working with NVoicepay and the solution? Good, bad, or indifferent, right? You don't have to hold any punches.
Any of these solutions, sometimes the less feedback, the better, because you tend not to get somebody calling up and saying, hey, I love the system, it's great. There's actually been very limited, which has been good. I think they've all enjoyed the quicker payment. The 1 or 2 times where we do get feedback, it's been from maybe a sub that doesn't intend to be paid by credit card, and maybe they were doing residential service and they had signed up to be paid by credit card. But once we kind of explained to them, it's ultimately your choice. You would just need to change the setting on your thing. You can get paid via ACH now. And ultimately, if you want to go back to being paid by credit card in the future, you can update. So that's probably been the very limited feedback that we've received.
No, that's really neat. That's great insight. And it's just a nature of the beast, right? When you're communicating with your vendors about a different payment method, there's going to be good, bad, and ugly, right? And one thing I think personally that's neat, after working so many years with virtual cards, is that the service behind the NVoicepay solution allows us, us Corpay, to help your vendor in that scenario of, hey, I didn't really want a credit card. Our team stops that credit card on your behalf and issues them a check right away while we get them ideally converted to ACH. So I think, that's a really neat part about the NVoicepay solution as compared to the standalone virtual card, which Elaine probably knows just as good as anyone. If someone doesn't want that card, you got to say, please, would you take this one, and or stop that card and issue them a check. So kind of a neat service involved in the NVoicepay solution. One thing I wanted to ask you there, Todd, was, and I didn't prep you for this again, so you may have a short answer to it, but did you do anything special and unique in regards to your communication with vendors at the onset of implementing NVoicepay? Example would be, did you send any letters out or any communication prior to having us do it, or put a link on your website for NVoicepay? Anything you did differently there? Maybe the standard.
Other than we did have a customized letter to go out just to get people to a comfort level, knowing in this environment, really with all the potential fraud. But we've actually allowed NVoicepay to take it over since then. I know they'll put the check stuffers and things like that to try and convert people. But we really haven't had to. We've got a very good mix of people that accept the ACH, and it tends to grow every month. It's something we do track on some of the dashboards that are on the NVoicepay site. So we kind of have an idea as how are we progressing month to month. And we're actually looking now, we might dedicate somebody to actually convert people maybe a little bit more from the checks to the ACH to ease the payment process even further.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I noticed like your mix is a little different than our average client, if you would, given that you have 50% of ACH conversion and just shy of 20, right? I think on average we're seeing it in that 20 to 25% on card, and probably 40 to 55 on ACH. So it's neat to kind of hear it's kind of a living, breathing cycle, if you will, of constantly trying to communicate with your vendors. Just the nature of your business is cyclical by design, right? So continually trying to move vendors off of paper check is a big part of the process.
Yep.
So thanks again for that answer, Todd. Elaine, what feedback from your employees have you received on the one card solution and expense management tool?
They do like the recent upgrade to the expense track app. If there is any issues, they know that they could call in. We have a couple little workarounds. When we send the card out to them, we did a cheat sheet showing them where to get the app, what it looks like, each drop down. So they get that. If they need to call in, we have myself plus 2 others, Paul being one, that can assist them along the way. It's very rare that somebody will call in with that. Usually it's only if they change their phones and then they run into a problem. The good part is now they can use the card and they don't have to write purchase orders as much and wait for the purchase orders to go through the accounting department. So that has helped them to keep their job on track and keep just moving it along.
That's neat. And how, organizationally, how did you all get there to decide, hey, rather than having to have Pete or Harold call in for a purchase order, empower that individual to use this card, right, with a profile we deem normal purchasing behavior for them, or the use of the one-time override instead of getting a PO? Operationally or organizationally from the top down, was that difficult or?
No, it was very easy. We have about 20 profiles. Many of them are fuel for our equipment, different levels for the different pieces of equipment. And then we also have, as far as our project managers to the field, certain items that they, up to a certain limit, what they could do. So that is very specific. So you can watch it that way. If they do need an override, it usually comes through myself. And if I feel the need, if it's something that I need to get approved, I can reach out to upper management a lot quicker than what they can from the field. And once I get the approval, I can just go in and do the override.
Very neat. Very neat. And last here, just kind of popped into my head. Do you all manage reimbursements through Expense Track as well? Like if Harold needs to use cash for a tip or his own card for whatever reason it may be, do you have employees enter reimbursements into Expense Track or no?
No, we don't do that right now. We go through the viewpoint ourselves, Vista Viewpoint.
Okay, very cool. And just to call it out, what is there something specific within Viewpoint that you're leveraging to do that?
The HR portal is what they're using now.
HR portal. Okay, very cool. Well, thank you, Todd and Elaine. We'll go to question 4. Harold?
So this question is going to be for both of you. And Todd, we'll go to you first here on this. But what were some of the challenges or feedback or that you received from your AP team, maybe an executive team, when evaluating the NVoicepay solution for the first time?
No, we didn't have too many challenges throughout the process. We kind of go into any process evaluation enhancement with maybe some we call showstoppers. Really what we wanted to make sure that the system we had in place had very limited requirements on our side. And that's what we found here is, like I said, you kick the file out. We work with Viewpoint 2. There was already a file created that's automatically you could bring up into NVoicepay. So very simplistic. The only requirement, and this is more for our kind of internal control processes, we tend to have, or we do have 2 signatures in the past on checks that were greater than a certain dollar amount. So the executive team still wanted that in place. That is something actually we were able to work with NVoicepay, where you actually now have 2 approvers. So they're clearly not signing the check anymore. But as you go through the approval process, anytime there's a payment greater than the set dollar amount, a second person has to log in and do that approval. So I don't think that was a standard thing in the process. That's something we work with NVoicepay to set up for ourselves. So I was able to get the executive team a little bit more at ease with that process.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing we hear as well when we're talking about an AP solution, is that approval. So I think you answered 2 of how did you overcome that? It sounds like really the NVoicepay team was able to accommodate you there.
Yep.
Great. Fantastic. Elaine, same question to you.
Change would be the biggest thing. Everybody fears change, and then learning something new. But in doing this, we held meetings with the accounts payable department first. Everybody was able to put in what they suggested, what they were fearful of. How are we going to work through this? We did a lot of brainstorming at first, and we put it all in place. And then, like I said, when we send out a card to a team member, we send them out as we call it, the cheat sheet. And they know that they can call anybody in accounts payable to guide them, to assist them, to walk them through even the first expense that they do.
Fantastic. And I assume from executive management standpoint, everybody was on board. And
it's, like I wasn't involved with a lot of those meetings, but you always have that worry, like the controls. Where are the controls going to be? They didn't want to just see things going, like right out the door, as anybody doesn't like that. We did testing, the test a virtual payment to make sure that it's going to go through, changing, where the payment was going to go to myself, so I can see that the payment came through and it came through correctly. We had, a list of checks and balances that we went through, and we all seem to agree with it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Elaine. Appreciate it.
All right, to our final question. Let's see here, make sure you can see me on the screen. So, Todd, what advice would you give someone evaluating their existing payment process, right? As short and sweet, or as lengthy as you'd like?
The biggest thing up front for us is just to get to know the company you're partnering with. I mean, it's something you want to do, but necessarily you don't want to do it more than once. So really just really understand the company, understand their internal controls, make sure they've had some type of audit report done. Clearly you're talking a lot of money over time that you're going to be utilizing this organization for. So you want to make sure that if something hits the fan at one point, they have the wherewithal to stand behind it, and they've got the controls in place to prevent some type of issue ever coming about.
That's a great call out. And, we speak to that a lot, right? Undoubtedly, in any relationship we have with any client, there's going to be a road bump, right? But I think we hold solace in the fact that we feel like we are a good partner and will manage those road bumps with you properly. And what you mentioned is kind of a great call out for that, doing your homework first. So thanks, Todd. Elaine, same to you. What advice would you give someone evaluating their existing card program, and job costing and/or obviously, virtual card, which I don't have typed on here?
Probably to map out what they are doing right now and compare to see which one would work better for them, and not to be afraid of change. When I first did this, it was like handed to me, and I was greener than green. And now if you ask me, I would say I wouldn't go back to running checks totally again. I like the virtuals. I like the cards. I like to be able to go out there and have the control of the cards.
That's awesome. Change management, right? That's the name of the game.
You
in
got
either
it.
of these solutions, right? Fighting status quo. Well, Elaine, Todd, I can't thank you enough, from Harold and all of Corpay and CFMA. Thank you so much for taking the time on a Monday to get on and talk about how you're leveraging the technology and, some candid feedback to the beginning, end, and middle of using the solution. So again, we really appreciate your time. Harold, have you seen any, let's see, let me go to the chat here.
There's one question about rebates and what the rebates apply to, whether that's check, ACH, or the virtual card.
Okay. Yeah. So rebates are applicable to the the physical card for point of sale purchases, right? As well as the virtual card, whether that's a standalone virtual card or the virtual card in the NVoicepay solution. There is no financial return for EFT, ACH, and/or check. How we're creating that rebate is derived from interchange. So interchange is the cost of accepting electronic forms of payment. So typical standard interchange is anywhere from 2 to 2.5%, let's say with MasterCard and Visa, give or take, and depending upon how it settles, it could be even lower. Amex, to your personalized, is not quite as widely accepted. Simply put, is because the interchange or the cost of accepting it's a little bit more, like 3 or 3.5%. Let's say they're working on getting more acceptance. But long-windedly, to answer your question, there's only a rebate when there is interchange present in the transaction. That's on the physical MasterCard and/or the virtual MasterCard transaction. Thanks for that question, Robin. Anyone else?
That was about it.
The mics are open either.
There was one question on if you were evaluating Comdata right now or NVoicepay right now and looking at that solution. If you hadn't signed up yet, could you still go through the portal? And the answer, of course, is yes, that we can do that. So.
Cool. That's great. Well, Kathy, Laura, we can kick it back to you. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time today. And, if you have any, here we go. Another question. Robin, how do you show a subcontractor that's accepting credit card is better than check? So the big benefit from a check to a credit card is going to be how quickly they get paid, right? And the call out here is, to reiterate, is subs are not great candidates for virtual cards because those are contracted, negotiated rates. We have over the years seen subs take virtual card, but usually it's in pretty unique scenarios. And Elaine, maybe I'll kick it back to you in a second, because I think you said you had some that took, but maybe if it's a tier 2 or a tier 3 sub who's 90+ days out on receiving payment from you, and they're a pay when paid scenario, and they're not the strongest on a cash position, they would be open to accepting a card, but there's going to be interchange in there. So depending upon what they pay in an interchange rate and how that card settles, it could be 2 to 2.5% they're giving up. So we don't recommend pushing virtual cards on your subs when it's not applicable, right? A sub's probably best to be attempted to convert to an ACH, unless, right, you can make a business case for it. Elaine, again, that's a curveball, but to you, can you speak to it candidly to, how you see subs from your company taking virtual cards?
We have quite a few that are taking them. Again, it is a quicker turnaround on the payment. We usually tell our subs that's our preferred method of payment, and then they will work with us. They will try it. Sometimes they do want to go back to check, depending on, the amount that they're getting. and what the interchange is. But we've had long-term subs taking this and they're liking it.
Yeah, I guess that's, just point in case that you don't know until you ask, right? And that's, so some of our clients say, hey, call everybody and ask them if they'll take it. It's a question. You can say yes or no to. And some folks, a lot of general contractors tend to, just target their subs with ACH. So, it's unique to the company, and gratefully there's no wrong answer to it, right? So that's awesome feedback. Thanks so much, Elaine. And thanks for the question, Robin.
And we don't try to sell people. I mean, we try to move people to ACH is the thing. We'll sometimes try to move them from credit card to a discount, but.
Yeah, right. Well, that's, a nature of the beast again, right? As we're communicating with vendors and bringing up conversations of preferred methods of payment and time to pay, Todd, what you're alluding to, a lot of our clients do. To give a shout out to Steve Lord. I think I saw his name somewhere else on here. He was doing that years ago, right? Steve would always, concede days to pay for a card and try to get people on 2% net 10s, which are valuable to your business. So that's a great call out, Todd. All right. Well, unless any more questions come up as we're kind of wrapping up here, again, thank you all so much for the time today. We greatly appreciate the partnership. And Elaine, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with everyone. Kathy, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. Again, I want to echo that. Thank you, Elaine and Todd, for being part of this, and Harold and Peter for, again, being part of it and being great partners. We have been started doing this series on member benefits so that our members can dive deeper into what some of the great member benefits are. So this fit into that category. So we're happy to have done this webinar. It's our second in that series, as Laura mentioned up front. Our next webinar in the member benefit series will be on November 18th on our financial benchmarker. So be on the lookout for that if you want to hear more about that. Any Comdata questions, you can all contact Peter or Harold. If you're unsure who to contact, send it my way, and I'm happy to send over the Corpay. I keep calling you Comdata. I'll send over the Corpay questions.
That's okay. We'll answer anything. Just call us. We don't care what you call us.
So yeah, feel free to reach out to them. If you're not sure who to reach out to me, and I'll send you their way. Thank you so much for attending. Bye all.